Discover how a disrespected mechanic transformed a CEO's challenge into an amazing love story. Jake stood in his garage, surrounded by the comforting chaos of engines and tools, the smell of motor oil mixing with the sharp scent of gasoline. Every day felt the same, a continuous loop of grease-stained hands and the hum of machinery. But amidst this routine, a gnawing anxiety lurked in the corners of his mind, a constant reminder of the rift between him and the affluent residents of Oak Ridge. They saw him as nothing more than a mechanic, their disdain palpable whenever they rolled up with their shiny cars. Yet, his heartbeat quickened at the thought of someone different: Sarah, the CO's daughter, her confidence a stark contrast to his lowly status. Jake had spent years honing his skills, his humility a shield against the judgment of Oak Ridge's privileged. Yet there was a nagging fear cloaked beneath his resilience. What if all this dedication amounted to nothing, leaving him stranded among the shadows of respectability with dreams long buried? And now, his father's fading health pressed down like a weight on his chest, the stories of past prosperity echoing in his ears, intensifying his scrutiny of every wrench turned. Each click and clatter of his tools echoed the doubt reverberating in his mind. Would he ever rise above this life, or was he destined to remain invisible, entirely dismissed? Sarah cruised through Oak Ridge in her sleek sedan, the very image of corporate success. Yet, as she pulled into a convenience store, she felt the gnawing sting of frustration tear at her. Her father's expectations loomed over her like a dark cloud, the weight of the family business pressing down. She had an insatiable need to prove herself, rejuvenate the auto parts business their family had once ruled. The irony twisted in her gut. She had always viewed mechanics, and people like Jake, as mere cogs in the wheel of industry, while her own life felt like a spinning top teetering at the edge of collapse. Could she ever be more than just the heiress desperate to breathe life into a fading legacy? The universe had a peculiar way of uniting paths, and one afternoon, as fate would have it, Sarah's car sputtered to a halt, refusing to budge. Cursing under her breath, she realized the only recourse was to let go of her pride and appeal to the very mechanic she looked down upon. Jake's garage. Jake. The name tumbled through her mind, dredging up memories of disdain mingled with intrigue, a man who embodied everything she had resisted. As she stepped into the garage, she was hit by the warmth and chaos of the space, but also the allure of Jake's steady presence. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. At first, the encounters felt layered in tension, words exchanged with awkward hesitance. But soon, conversations emerged like the pipes he worked on, twisted but remarkably sound when put together. They spoke of ambitions stacked against one another, the pressure of family expectations intertwining with the necessity of hard work. Each meeting fed an unexpected spark between them, yet Jake's growing concern weighed heavily. He had come across something sinister related to her father's business dealings, dodgy contracts that could threaten his livelihood, and any chance of happiness with Sarah. The more he learned, the tighter the knot in his stomach tightened. As Jake wrestled with these revelations, the distance between them seemed insurmountable. Could he risk exposing the lie that could dismantle her world and shatter any hope of their connection? His heart raced at the thought, dread mixing with the desire pulsing through him. If he confronted Sarah with the truth, he would step into the raging storm of a corporate scandal, casting her father's empire into chaos and possibly losing her forever. The internal tension spiraled, clawing at his resolve. Would he speak out, risking everything for love, or retreat to the shadows, paralyzed by fear of repulsion, of never knowing what could have been? The decisive moment hung in the air, heavy with unvoiced words, the threat of impending choices looming larger than life. Jake stood at the crossroads, each path obscured by uncertainty, anguish tightening its grip as his heart thundered with every tick of time slipping away. Jake's hands trembled slightly as he wiped the grease off his palms onto a rag. The air in the garage felt thick with the unspoken truth, the weight of his potential decision coiling tightly in his chest. Each shift of his mind, grappling with the implications of what he had discovered, rattled him to his core. Provenances and truths, he mused, were often as intricate as the engines he restored. He could either salvage their delicate tune or let them sputter away, their hidden flaws never unveiled. The more he reflected on Sarah, the deeper the conflict within him surged. She was not simply the CEO's daughter. She was a person entrenched in her own battles, one of them being the company's precarious state and her estrangement from her own aspirations. But was their connection genuine, or merely driven by a shared need for respect and acceptance? Questions ricocheted in his mind, loud and unrelenting. If he chose to speak with her about the corruption lurking in her father's operation, could their burgeoning relationship withstand the fallout? The next morning, as the bright sun filtered through the garage windows, Jake found himself reeling with a vision of future possibilities. Beneath the layers of worry was a flicker of determination. Maybe this challenge wasn't merely an obstacle. Perhaps it could ignite a path to something greater. Quietly, he began mapping out a plan. Tools aligned on the bench became symbols of his resolve. Facing his fears head-on might not only help him expose truths that needed to be told, it could also elevate his own sense of worth among the town's elite, breaking free of the mechanic's stigma he had borne for so long. A surge of anticipation coursed through him with each bolt. He tightened on a classic Mustang, a car he was reviving for an upcoming auction. Completion of this project wasn't just about turning a profit. It was a testament to his skills, evidence he could present to himself and the world. He imagined presenting Sarah with the finished car, sharing not just a mechanic's workshop but a glimpse into what he could achieve when fueled by purpose and passion. As he rolled out of the garage that evening, muscles aching yet invigorated thoughts of Sarah overtook him. Would she understand the magnitude of what he discovered? Would she stand by him, or would she recoil from the implications about her father? The thought made his heart race, the excitement and dread cycling through his veins. Suddenly, standing outside the garage, he spotted Sarah just down the road, her car parked beneath the golden glow of streetlights. She was on the phone, her brow furrowed in concentration. Watching her brilliant and fierce, he realized that the stakes were higher than he had originally perceived. This wasn't just about corporate misdeeds. It was about potential, growth, and the possibility of love blooming among the wreckage of her father's empire. With a single breath, he approached her, a mixture of purpose and anxiety swirling within him. Each step felt like a fraught decision, where he would either draw her closer or push her away forever. Just as he neared, Sarah hung up, her face flashing from grim determination to something softer, realizing he stood before her. "Jake," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "What's going on?" His heart pounded as he considered the truth that could reshape their lives. Could he expose the lies he had unearthed, or would he be the one left stranded in his own shadow of unfulfilled dreams? The moment hung suspended in time, brimming with potential. "Can we talk?" he whispered, the urgency evident in his tone. With that, the path ahead beckoned, a precarious balance between revelation and vulnerability. But deep down, Jake felt aware. The time had come to face not only the truths of her father's business, but his own fears about what they could become together. The moon hung low as Jake and Sarah settled onto a bench overlooking the quiet street. The soft hum of the night enveloped them, but in Jake's mind, a tempest raged, a swirl of doubts, ambitions, and urgency so fierce he could barely catch his breath. He had left the garage after a long day, but this moment felt like the precipice of something monumental. "Jake," Sarah began, her voice a delicate blend of concern and curiosity, "what's weighing on you? You look intense." Her eyes, searching and bright, bore into him, reigniting that flicker of determination deep within. He hesitated, fighting against the urge to protect her from his discovery. Yet, protecting her from the truth felt all the more cowardly now. "I found something," he started, his voice strained. "Something about your father's operation. Something wrong." is not what it appears to be. The weight of his words hung palpably between them, mingling with the salt of anxiety in the air. Sarah's expression transitioned from curiosity to shock and then distress. Jake's instinct screamed at him to retreat, to soften his revelation before it shattered this fragile connection they had begun to weave. "Wrong how?" she pressed, her voice almost a whisper, the tension evident in how she leaned closer. That closeness ignited conflicting feelings within him. He could see the determination in her eyes to stand firm, to seek justice. It mirrored his own aspirations, the wish to grow beyond the mechanic who lived in shadows. With that drive now bolstered by shared purpose, his fear began to ebb. Fraud and deceit. I found records that just don't add up. Money that disappears and projects that are skimming off the top, Sarah. I'm not sure how deep it goes, but Sarah's brow furrowed with the gravity of each revelation. He watched the realization process, an amalgam of hurt and anger igniting within. "You can't genuinely believe my father would do something like that," she replied, her voice laced with disbelief. "Maybe not, but people can change when power takes hold. You see it everywhere, in businesses, even in families. This isn't just your father's company. It's a part of who you are, and it could collapse without anyone giving a second thought. Is that why you wanted to talk to me? To expose him?" She shot back, a hint of betrayal gleaming in her eyes. Jake paused at her reaction, penetrating and astute. He hadn't intended for it to feel like exposure. It felt more like standing before a mirror. The reflection, the possibilities. Yet here he was, standing on the edge of vulnerability, aiming to be transparent. Not expose for the sake of ruining him, but to save what can be saved: your vision for the company, the dreams you have. The earnestness of his plea resonated in the air, and he could see it begin to affect her. Sarah's expression shifted, the walls she had begun to erect barely containing the weight of uncertainty. "You think I could take this on? I'm just a marketing executive, not the one in charge. If my father finds out about this conversation, your career matters. But so do your values. Why cower beneath privilege that may not even be worth it? What if stepping up changes everything for you?" The uncertainty began to swirl into something greater, a possibility. He noted her inner turmoil, perfectly mirroring his own struggles. Perhaps they could forge a path together, not just as partners in the mechanics of corporate life but as catalysts for real change. Sarah's gaze flickered to the ground, her mind visibly wrestling with every word Jake had forged into existence. "What if I fail? What if my leaving means losing everything? Then at least you've chosen to chase after what you believe in. And isn't that worth more than just keeping up appearances?" He felt the words crackling with energy, stirring something deep inside him that had been dormant far too long. The tension shifted as Sarah finally met his gaze again, determination mingling with uncertainty. "You really think I can do this?" The moment unfurled in layers as they took a collective breath, understanding just how high the stakes had climbed. For Jake, the revelation was profound. He wasn't merely trying to save Sarah or her company. He was stepping into his own worth and ability. That night beneath the stars, they clashed and collided, building dreams beyond their fears. But with newfound clarity, neither could shake the looming figure of her father in the background, the embodiment of everything they were up against. Jake felt a shiver of resolve brand him anew. The time had come not just to confront the darkness, but to ignite the flame of truth. "Are you ready to fight for what's right?" he asked, his voice unwavering. "I think so," Sarah replied, a spark igniting in her eyes. "But where do we start? What if we start with gathering proof? We can't face him blind." The thought launched them both into a new world of possibility and peril. With that, Jake understood they were embarking on a journey far more intricate than the mechanics he had mastered. A path forged in resilience, passion, and the raw intensity of truth. The stakes were higher than ever, and as they prepared to delve deeper, a new shadow loomed larger than before, one that threatened to crush their resolve. The battle was just beginning. The following morning, Jake woke to the soft light filtering through the blinds of his small apartment, providing a stark contrast to the turmoil that raged in his mind. He had barely slept, too consumed by thoughts of how he and Sarah could navigate the perilous revelations they faced. The shadows of uncertainty danced just beyond his determination, reminding him of how immense the battle ahead truly was. Wanting to channel his unease into something productive, he decided to visit the garage early. As he ran his hands over the familiar tools and equipment, a sudden realization hit him. This garage was a reflection of his journey, a chaotic amalgamation of discarded parts, fragments of dreams, and hard work. Much like his life, it needed order and intention. Jake began organizing the workspace with purpose, creating a more efficient layout while contemplating his role going forward. Each adjustment felt symbolic, a step towards clarity. He had unconsciously been evading the responsibility that came with acting upon important truths. But now there was no turning back. He knew the skills he honed over the years weren't just for fixing cars. They were indicative of his capacity for healing larger conflicts. As he tightened the bolts of a vehicle's engine, he reflected on his conversations with Sarah. The echoes of her doubts lingered, intertwining with his memories of feeling small and unrecognized. What if she believed in him as much as he believed in her? What if confronting her father was the catalyst they both needed for personal growth? Determined, Jake shifted his focus to the challenges ahead. With the operation at stake, any delay in gathering information could allow deception to flourish. They needed to devise a plan that was as strategic as it was courageous. He could visualize their efforts unraveling the truth, illuminating the shadows that had swallowed Sarah's family. This vision fueled him, pushing each muscle to work harder, fueled by the redemption it promised. Giving himself a moment to breathe, he paused and flicked a drop of oil from his hands. Standing back to survey his work, he felt an inkling of the confidence he had lacked in the past. Each tightened bolt, each organized shelf whispered of his capacity to construct not just machines, but a way forward. Later in the afternoon, Sarah arrived with a stack of documents. Her eyes sparkled with renewed fervor, the seeds of determination now unfurling full bloom. "I spoke with a couple of contacts at my father's company," she said, her voice steady, fueled by adrenaline. "If we can find inconsistencies in expenditures or contracts, we could start weakening his influence." Jake felt a surge of admiration. Here was this woman, standing boldly against the patriarchal image of authority she had grown up with. He nodded, invigorated in her presence, feeling as if they were honing their weapons for a battlefield too long neglected. The dynamic had swiftly shifted from mere allies to a fierce partnership, resilient against the looming threat. "We'll dissect the contracts," Jake decided, already mapping out how they could comb through those documents. "We need to be methodical. Every detail counts." As they delved into the figures and fine print, the weight of anxiety settled but was countered with purpose. They highlighted discrepancies. The numbers painted a picture that told a story far more sinister than either had anticipated. With each confirmed deviation, they felt the pulse of responsibility growing stronger. Could their efforts lead to a breakthrough? Jake's mind raced with the implications, the potential to not only uncover the truth, but liberate Sarah too. Just as the clock struck 7, the air grew heavy with anticipation. Sarah's phone buzzed, her father's number flashing across the screen. Instinctively, she froze, eyes darting between Jake and the call. "Answer it," Jake urged, sensing the gravity. This could be the catalyst for everything. She took a deep breath, the tension palpable as her thumb hovered over the screen. At that moment, a new layer of fear and excitement entwined within her. "Okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But remember, whatever happens next changes everything." With that, the stakes climbed even higher, an irrevocable shift waiting just seconds away. Would the phone call further her resolve or unravel whatever progress they had fought for? The battle they had continually prepared for was now drawing near, and both hearts raced, anticipating the revelation that could seal their fate. The phone rang, slicing through the tense silence like a knife. As Sarah finally answered, a flood of emotions washed over Jake. She held the device to her ear, but the conversation's initial sounds were muffled, as if the barriers between her world and his had grown thicker. Each spoken syllable from her father transformed into a butterfly trapped in a glass jar, fluttering helplessly against the constraints of their circumstance. Jake felt his heart race. He pressed his palms against the workbench, attempting to steady himself through sheer will. The tension of the moment stretched thin, making the garage feel like a cage. He shifted his weight, uncertain whether to invade her space or remain a silent support. As Sarah's expression shifted from anxious to steely resolve, he knew this was a tipping point. Each word exchanged felt like a thread binding their fates tighter together. "Are you really sure about that?" she asked, her voice strong yet laced with an undercurrent of vulnerability. Jake's mind raced. What harsh truths was her father uncovering? Watching her, he couldn't help but reflect on the evolution of their relationship. They had started as frightened individuals, both navigating their own lives filled with disarray. Yet now, shoulders squared and eyes fixated on purpose, they seemed to emanate a raw determination that sparked something deeper between them. After several tense moments, Sarah hung up, dropping the phone onto the workbench like a hot iron. Her breath came in quick bursts, and a sudden emptiness where certainty once thrived rushed in. Did she gain clarity, or merely deeper doubts? "What did he say?" Jake asked, anxiety darkening his voice. "He didn't just deny anything," she said quietly, the weight of his dismissal pressing heavily on her shoulders. "He didn't even acknowledge my concerns about those contracts. It's like he doesn't see me at all." The vulnerability in her voice cut through him. Jake stepped closer, desperation sneaking into his composure. "You're more than just your father's daughter. You can change things. We've unearthed the inconsistencies. This isn't just about him." The look she gave him startled him. It was a mix of gratitude and desperation. "But at what cost?" she whispered. "If I push back against him, will I lose everything?" "How can you lose what you never had?" he countered, words spilling out with a passion he didn't realize he possessed. "You've been fighting this battle on your own for too long. Let us together confront the truth and dismantle the shadows." As the words left his lips, he felt the shift in both their realities. The moment transformed into a shared mission. For the first time, Jake vocalized a deeper truth. He began to see not just the mechanic in himself, but a partner capable of change, mirroring Sarah's resolve. Encouraged by her renewed fire, Jake took a seat beside her, their shoulders touching, forging a palpable connection. "I know your father has power, but every empire has its cracks. We need to exploit his weakness. Together?" she asked. Her affirmation reignited a spark within him. "Together," he echoed, knowing the commitment was both personal and professional. They wouldn't just be repairing machines or challenging authority. They would be constructing something resilient, a future unencumbered by the shadows of their pasts. The night drew on as they strategized, piecing together plans that would confront every discrepancy they had uncovered. With every exchanged idea and glance, Jake felt walls within himself crumbling. He was no longer just that mechanic in a dilapidated garage, but a figure wielding the power of truth. But as the clock began ticking deeper into the night, a sudden knock at the garage door made them both jump, the sound echoing in the stillness. Who could it be? Was it an ally, a harbinger of hope, or a threat about to unveil itself? Jake exchanged uneasy glances with Sarah, the unfolding mystery lacing their hearts with tension once more. They were on the precipice of a new challenge, and everything they had built was about to be tested. In unimaginable ways. Jake's heart thudded against his chest as he and Sarah shared a fleeting look of apprehension. The knock echoed ominously in the dimly lit garage, shattering their moment of solidarity. This noise unexpected, disruptive, threw a wrench into their growing momentum. His mind raced. Was this the confrontation they had feared, or perhaps an unexpected opportunity? "I'll check," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah nodded, her expression a blend of cautious hope and lingering trepidation. She remained seated, her hands tense in her lap. Jake moved toward the heavy metal door, the chill of uncertainty creeping up his spine. Each step was deliberate, fueled by a surge of adrenaline. He had come to understand the weight of the choice he was about to make. Open the door and confront the unknown, or remain in the false comfort of isolation with Sarah. He peered through the narrow window, heart racing. A familiar figure stood outside, half hidden in the shadows. It was Marcus, Sarah's father's lawyer. A chill of recognition washed over him, and the implications struck him. Marcus represented everything they had been preparing to challenge. The stakes just multiplied. "Jake," the lawyer said, his tone deferential yet commanding. "I need to speak with you and Sarah." For a moment, Jake stood there motionless, torn between the impulse to slam the door and the responsibility to protect their newfound strength. Was this an attempt at intimidation, or perhaps a chance to gather further intelligence? He swallowed hard, unlocking the door with a resolve that surprised him. As he swung it open, he caught a glimpse of Marcus's meticulous attire, the tailored suit and polished shoes highlighting the disparity in their worlds. "Come in," Jake said, stepping aside to allow Marcus entry, though he felt as if he were inviting a poised serpent into their humble sanctuary. Once inside, Marcus surveyed the cluttered garage, a mix of tools and unfinished projects strewn about evidence of their labor, a testament to their aspirations. He turned to face them, his posture radiating authority. "I believe we need to have a serious conversation about recent events." Jake's stomach churned. This was it. This was the clash he had anticipated but hoped to evade. "You mean the contracts?" Sarah interjected, her voice stronger than it had been just minutes ago. "What do you intend to do with them?" Marcus studied her, his eyes narrowing ever so slightly. "Your father is anxious about the implications if these discrepancies come to light. He values loyalty above all else, Sarah." "Loyalty?" Jake snapped, surprising even himself. "What kind of loyalty is built on deceit? You can't protect him from the truth forever." The lawyer smirked, a glimmer of amusement crossing his face. "What truth?" "The truth is subjective, Jake. You misunderstand the fine line we walk here. These contracts can be rectified, made to look favorable if you play along." Jake's indignation flared. Why should we play along with a lie just to spare his feelings? This isn't just about appearances. You and your boss need to be held accountable. Sarah's gaze shifted between the two men, and for a split second, Jake saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. Had he overstepped? But then he remembered their shared purpose and the emerging collaboration that had driven him. Marcus noticed the shift. "The stakes are higher than you realize, both personally and professionally. If you persist, there will be consequences. Are you both prepared to face them?" Instead of retreating, Jake leaned in, driven by an unfamiliar determination. "We're prepared to confront the truth, Marcus. We protect each other's interests, not the whims of someone who disregards us." The air crackled with tension. Marcus's expression darkened, and for the first time, Jake sensed the lawyer's fragile confidence faltering. This was a crux, a moment where they could rewrite the narrative. But what if Marcus retaliated? What if this confrontation put everything they built at risk? As Jake grappled with these haunting questions, he felt Sarah squeeze his hand. Together, they gathered strength, igniting a flame of resistance that pushed back against the looming shadows. With intentions undisguised, Jake faced the lawyer defiantly. "We won back down." A slow realization settled in the air. They were not just two frightened individuals anymore. They had transformed into a formidable alliance. But just as they'd crafted their foundation, the door rattled again, louder this time. The unexpected entry ignited a gnawing anxiety that coursed through the room. Who else stood ready to enter this fray, and what awaited them inside those shadows? The door rattled again, a sharp reminder of the tension coiling around them like an approaching storm. Jake's heart raced as he turned to Marcus, whose composed facade cracked slightly at the unexpected interruption. Every instinct screamed for caution. This could either be a saving grace or the catalyst for their undoing. "Who is it?" Jake demanded, his voice steady despite the unease rippling through him. "They won knock." "They don't need to," Marcus replied, a hint of bravado creeping into his tone. "But you should tread carefully, Jake. The world of corporate law is merciless." "Let them in," Sarah urged, her quiet strength surging as the shadow of indecision crept in. If they're here, let us face it all together. Jake swallowed, aware that defiance was a double-edged sword. They had already crossed a threshold. The confrontations with Marcus were only the beginning. If someone was indeed on the other side, this was not just about facing the lawyer. It was about standing resolute against everything Marcus's presence represented. The door creaked open dramatically, and a man bypassed Marcus with an air of confidence that demanded attention. This was no ordinary visitor. Dressed in a pristine suit with an undeniable air of authority, he was a vision of cold competence. Jake felt the weight of this newcomer's eyes, scanning the room with a chilling accuracy. "Gentlemen and lady," the man started, his voice smooth yet edged with steel. "I'm David Klein, representing your father's interests, Sarah." The revelation slammed into them like a brick wall. The implications twisted around Jake like a noose, amplifying the stakes. He studied Sarah, who was unmoving, her expression unreadable. Had they unwittingly stepped into a deeper trap set by the very man they sought to confront? "What brings you here?" Sarah managed, her words trembling under the weight of authority pressing down on them. Klein stepped further inside, undeterred by the charged atmosphere. "We have a mutual concern that can no longer be ignored. Your family's business dealings are under scrutiny, and I'm here to ask for your cooperation. This is not a request you can afford to dismiss." The unmasked threat hung palpably in the air. Jake could feel the walls closing in around them. There was a decisive moment brewing, where they could either voice their concerns or fall back into the hesitation that had defined their pasts. "Cooperation? You mean to keep us silent?" Jake countered, feeling the adrenaline surge. "That's not happening. Sarah deserves more than just the echoes of her father's mistakes." Klein raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet unyielding. "What do you intend to achieve, Jake? You're an outsider with grand aspirations. This isn't a game where tenacity can sway outcomes. You have no idea of the forces at play." "Maybe not," Jake countered, heart pounding. "But I do know that honesty has a power all its own, a power that you underestimate. Sarah and I are here for the truth, not a silence shrouded in apology." A flash of something akin to respect flickered in Klein's eyes before it was masked by professional detachment. "Very well. You believe you can control the narrative? Then you will need all the resolve you can muster." Looming chaos spilled forth in Jake's mind, a whirlpool of possibilities and peril. What would be the repercussions if they pursued this? Would it reforge their lives or shatter everything into irretrievable pieces? "Let us not pretend this is merely a discussion. It's a confrontation," Sarah challenged, steeling herself next to Jake, their hands still linked. "We're prepared to challenge the very foundation of the deceit we've been caught in. We want to be intimidated." "Good luck to you both," Klein responded blandly. "But remember that truth can be as fragile as it is illuminating. Find your allies wisely." As he exited, the weight of what had just transpired settled heavily on Jake's shoulders. He turned toward Sarah, seeing the evolving resolve in her eyes, mirrored by his own. They were walking on a knife's edge, but now they had one another, a partnership, straining against the forces seeking to divide them. This was no longer simply about confronting the people seeking to silence their voices. It had transformed into a quest that might redefine everything they stood for. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Sarah asked, her voice steady and fierce. "More than ever," Jake replied. Together, they stepped forward into the expansive unknown, emboldened by their shared purpose and unyielding commitment to confronting whatever awaited them. But as they pushed through the threshold, doubts loomed like dark clouds, threatening to rain down the consequences of their choices. Would their newfound strength unravel under pressure? Or would it illuminate a path through the chaos that had only just begun? The world outside shifted rapidly, but within that office, the air thickened with uncertainty. Jake stood rooted, consciously forcing himself to breathe steadily as he replayed Klein's words in his mind. Each statement cut deeper than he wished, revealing just how precarious their situation was. What if this was more than just corporate pressure? What if it was a personal vendetta against Sarah, against them both? "Jake?" Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts. Fear flickered in her eyes, hunting for reassurance. What do we do now? Instinctively, he squeezed her hand tighter. It was more than just a gesture. It was an anchor. We need a plan. Klein mentioned there are forces at play. We have to figure out who they are and how they're involved. She nodded, and for the first time, Jake felt a flicker of optimism ignite within him. They were not alone. Moments of clarity sparkled beneath the weight of their circumstances, an undeniable testament to their unyielding resolve to confront the chaos together. I can dig into public records regarding Dad's company, Sarah suggested, her voice steadying as she reclaimed a sense of agency. There may be someone leaking information, someone within our circle. Right, Jake agreed, adrenaline sharpening his focus. While you dig, I'll reach out to a few contacts I still have. There might be whispers in legal circles that could shed light on what's happening. As they began laying out the framework of their plan, Jake's mind raced. He, who once didn't truly understand corporate dynamics, was stepping into a realm rife with complexities that could swallow him whole or elevate him beyond his past. He envisioned their conversations, strategizing the best approach. Jake could feel the relentless clench of insecurity loosening its grip as he transitioned from uncertainty to practical action. They were no longer the puppets dancing to an unseen master's string. They were becoming orchestrators of their fate. As Sarah returned to her father's desk to access documents, Jake caught sight of his own reflection in the glossy surface of a framed photo, a glimpse of confidence tinged with the innocence of a mechanic. It hit him then. He had transformed in ways he had never anticipated. Each confrontation, each layer of truth peeled back from his world, had turned him into a fiercely determined individual ready to rise against deception. The weight of responsibility settled over him. His personal growth was raw and gritty, lived through nights spent wrestling with emotions and doubts. He was becoming someone who could stand firm against corporate giants, who could challenge the shadows closing in around them. But that meant pushing past a past riddled with hesitation. Yet, the prospect of unearthing painful truths about Sarah's father gnawed at him. Would their quest for justice drive a wedge between them? Would it fracture the bond that they had just begun to forge? Jake? Sarah's voice tugged him back. I found something. You might want to look at this. Compelled by urgency, he turned toward her, and his breath caught. Sarah held a document bearing his father's name. It was tangled within their investigation, something that opened a Pandora's box of betrayal and unspoken affiliations. You need to see this, she pressed, her resolve unwavering. It's about relationships he had, financial ties. The implications sent a ripple through Jake. This might connect the dots to Klein's ominous visit. The strength he had felt seconds ago broke into something more volatile. Fear tinged with curiosity, burdened with the possibility of being ensnared in a web spun with family deceit. Was that looming truth the key to their future or merely a weight that could drag them under? What else can we uncover? He asked, voice strained but determined, leaning forward as anticipation built in his gut. Everything we need to stop them, Sarah replied, her conviction battling against uncertainty. Together, they dove into uncharted territory, each revelation pulling them deeper into a fight that might not just redefine their lives, but could dismantle their very perceptions of loyalty and family. As they peeled back the layers, one question loomed above all others. How far would they go to uncover the truth, and at what cost? With trepidation flashing in their eyes, they prepared to confront shadows that had long lain dormant, each step leading them closer to the heart of a reality neither of them had anticipated. The moment of truth was drawing closer, but as they rolled the dice, they both knew the end of one narrative often paved the way for a more tangled tale to unfold. The atmosphere shifted within the dimly lit office as they hunched over the document, the weight of its contents palpable. Jake's heart raced. He had thought he was ready to face any truth, but the implications of his father's involvement caused an uncomfortable turmoil within him. Could his father have played a role in Sarah's family's misfortune, or worse, their entire situation? Let us focus on what we can control, Jake said, forcing his voice to steady. He refused to be overwhelmed by the unearthed connections between their families, no matter how entangled they felt. What do we actually know? Sarah quickly flipped through the pages, her fingers trembling slightly. There's evidence of financial ties between Dad's company and Klein's. Each word dripped with gravity, and a wave of dread washed over them both at the fragility of their growing bond. Do you think there's a chance Klein is using these connections against us? He asked, each syllable weighed down by doubt. The thought pricked at him, threatening to unravel the resolve they had forged. I don't know, but it's possible. Her voice remained strong, though he could sense the trembling beneath. We can't let it distract us. If we keep pushing forward, we can find a way to expose him. Jake felt a shift within himself as determination surged. This was not just about uncovering secrets anymore. It was about protecting the foundation they were building. Gone were the days when he would simply watch from the sidelines, cowering in the shadows of others. He had stakes in this battle now. Let us methodically gather more evidence, Jake proposed, his mind racing as they built a strategy. If we can document everything, we can confront Klein with a united front. Sarah nodded, an earnest fire flickering in her eyes. Together, their steps forward solidified their partnership, weaving the threads of their fates tighter, pivoting from trepidation to action. Hours passed with discussion and research, their focus laser-sharp as they sifted through leads' emails, transaction records, and board meeting minutes. Each document they uncovered seemed to reinforce the alliance they had forged, even as it threw shadows on the legacies of their families. Jake found himself feeling different, almost invigorated. Every piece of information they dissected transformed him into a fledgling investigator, a strategist in the game of intricacies that corporate life had entailed. He realized this challenge offered him a platform to merge professional and personal growth, a chance to uncover not just the truth, but to redefine who he was, become a man of integrity amidst corruption. What if this turns out to be more damaging than helpful? Sarah asked, glancing at Jake, her apprehension a reflection of his own inner conflict. What if we expose things we can't control? He hesitated, wrestling with the fine line between justice and revenge. Then we'll face that consequence together. Nothing can fracture what we've worked to build. His voice was resolute, a newfound strength emerging within him. The possibility of loss was daunting, but the prospect of standing up for what they believed in outweighed it. Just as they began piecing together more leads, a sudden alert from Sarah's phone snagged their attention. She glanced at it, then back at Jake, the color draining from her face. It's Klein. He wants to meet. Alarm bells rang in Jake's head. Now? Yes, now. The urgency in her voice was matched by an alarming panic in her eyes. The weight of their findings clashed violently with the prospect of a face-to-face with their potential adversary. Jake's pulse quickened. They had overlooked the ever-looming threat. He took a breath to compose himself. We can't back down. This could be our chance to confront him without fear. But what if he already knows we're onto him? Sarah's concern poked at his bravado. Determination flickered in him. We go in with our heads up, united. If we sit back, we're just giving him more power. The gravity of their situation tightened the air around them. Each tick of the clock amplified. The stakes. Would they emerge from this encounter with clarity, or would it lead them farther into treachery? As they gathered their thoughts, Jake realized it was a test of their newfound resilience and commitment. The moment of truth was approaching, and uncertainty lingered like an uninvited guest. He glanced at Sarah, their eyes locking in shared anticipation. Are you ready? He asked, a challenge layered within his question. Her nod was decisive yet fearful. Let us expose the truth. Together, they prepared for a confrontation that could either seal their fates or illuminate the shadows lurking at the edges of their reality, a run-in that could demand everything they had fought so hard to build. The stakes climbed exponentially higher as Jake wrestled with a single, chilling thought. What if this meeting revealed the ultimate betrayal? The meeting with Klein loomed like a specter over Jake and Sarah as they drove toward the corporate office, an ornate building that starkly contrasted the anxiety swirling within them. Jake's palms gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles pale against the chrome. This was not just another confrontation. It was the pivotal moment that would determine not only their fates, but the very integrity of the lives they had tried to construct. Upon entering the sleek conference room, the atmosphere thickened with tension. Klein awaited them, casual yet commanding, his confident smirk betraying an unsettling arrogance. With each step forward, Jake felt the weight of purpose settle upon him. They had come too far to retreat now. "Thanks for coming," Klein began, his voice smooth but laced with an edge. "I hope you'll reconsider your approach. The implications of your inquiries don't just affect my clients. They could destroy reputations built over decades." Sarah, standing resolutely at Jake's side, gestured to the documents them had unearthed earlier. "We think it's essential to unveil the truth, Klein. No one, not even your clients, should be above accountability." A flicker of irritation crossed Klein's face, but he quickly masked it with a veneer of professionalism. Accountability is a noble sentiment, but naive in this industry. Survive, adapt, or fall behind, those are the rules. You both should know that by now. Jake inhaled deeply, centering himself amidst the mounting tension. "We understand the stakes better than anyone, but turning a blind eye to injustice only perpetuates a cycle of deceit." Klein leaned back, his fingers steepled as he scrutinized them. "And what is your endgame? To expose my clients? What do you stand to gain from this?" Jake's heart raced. He sensed the weight of the moment. "This isn't about gain for us. It's about ensuring that truth prevails over power. Each story we uncover represents lives impacted by greed. We refuse to be silenced." Klein's eyes narrowed, calculation playing across his features. "That idealism will cost you both far more than you can afford. I hope neither of you underestimates the ramifications of your choices." "Frankly, we're beyond fear," Sarah asserted, her voice steady and fierce. The fire within her sparked something potent in Jake. They were in this together, intertwined in strength and purpose. With each minute passed, the conversation deepened, the stakes escalating like a chess match nearing its climax. Both sides exchanged barbs, revealing concealed motivations, yet Jake could sense an opening. They needed to harness this gravity, turn Klein's intimidation into accountability. "You talk about consequences," Jake said, eyeing Klein intensely. "But what does that reveal about your own character? Hiding behind threats won't fortify your empire, it will lead to its collapse." Klein smirked at that, but Jake didn't waver. He was unearthing a deeper truth about himself, an understanding that their quest for justice was a journey rooted in personal growth. Sarah's belief in him, her unwavering trust, had lifted him from the shadows of doubt. Klein leaned forward, his voice dripping with condescension. The mechanic believes he can dismantle my operation. Do you hear yourself?" "I hear a man too afraid to confront his own demons," Jake retorted, the sharpness of his words settling over the room. "This isn't just business for us. We're fighting for respect. We're tired of being seen as disposable by people like you." Silence enveloped the room, tension thick as the air between them crackled with unresolved energy. Klein's facade cracked slightly, a flicker of surprise and recognition that he had underestimated them. Jake felt a surge of triumph. A newfound confidence solidified. Klein finally straightened, pondering his next move. "All right," he said slowly, measuring each word. "Let us say I'm willing to discuss this further. I'll need something solid from you, proof of your allegations, to ensure my clients' reputations are preserved." The challenge hung in the air. Jake exchanged glances with Sarah, who nodded slightly, her resolve unwavering. They now possessed leverage, the prospect of asserting their identities and honoring their ambitions. "Consider this meeting the beginning of our terms," Jake replied assertively. "We'll present our findings, and if you refuse to take them seriously, we'll escalate the inquiry. This isn't a threat, it's the responsibility you've avoided for too long." Klein rubbed his temples, irritation turning into a begrudging respect. "You're moving fast, but be mindful this fight will come with casualties. Are you truly prepared for that?" "More than you know," Jake replied, the heat of affirmation blazing within him. As Klein left the room, Jake and Sarah felt an electrifying thrill of victory. They had navigated the landscape they once feared, transformed it into a battleground for their abilities. Jake's hands trembled not from anxiety, but from the adrenaline of stepping defiantly into their narrative. With the first step concluded, they embraced the reality of their connection, a bond fortified by mutual respect and acknowledgement of deep-seated scars inflicted by their pasts. Did we just manage to challenge one of the most powerful men in Oak Ridge? Sarah asked, wonderment in her voice. Jake chuckled, their fears dissipating like smoke. It looks like we did. Equipped with newfound courage and clarity, they faced the tumultuous road ahead, alight with the promise of change and the thrill of undoing the darkness that threatened their bright hopes. Through the storm, they had transformed not only the lives they led but ultimately themselves, echoing the resilience of true partnership. As they stepped back into the world outside, a sense of shared purpose enveloped them. It was clear now. They were no longer just mechanic and heiress. They were changemakers, determined to expose the truths lurking beneath the polished facades of a world too often blinded by power. They drove away with a single focus, the belief that personal choices could carve new paths, illuminate shadows, and defy overwhelming odds. Jake looked at Sarah, determination reflecting in her eyes like fire. Together, they would conquer whatever lay ahead, committed to not just surviving but thriving. What was once a story of doubt had transformed into a narrative of triumph, their destinies intertwined in the quest for justice, respect, and a deeper understanding of themselves. The horizon sparkled with the possibilities yet to be discovered, yet they knew all too well that the journey was just beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.